Last month, Na Hong-jin sent Cannes into a frenzy with his first feature film in 10 years, Hope.
I absolutely loved the film. I had a blast. But what surprised me is that this was not the film that myself and many other critics were expecting. Based off of your previous work, we all thought this was going to be a slow burn, procedural drama/thriller. But what we found was a high-octane action thriller akin to Mad Max Fury Road.
Cannes this year was interesting to say the least. Notably, big Hollywood studios skipped the Quasset, and some would say the competition lineup this year was weaker than in previous years. The Palm being awarded to Fjord was also a controversial decision based off of what I've read and heard from people who've seen it, but putting all this aside, there were still some good films. I managed to see Minotaur directed by Andrzej Wajduntsev, which was cold and bleak but always intentional. Every frame in Minotaur is so clinical and precise that it's impossible for me not to admire the filmmaking on some level. A hallmark of any good film is its ability to imprint an image into one's mind, and Minotaur's final shot, which I won't spoil, is still extremely vivid to me. I also managed to see The Black Ball directed by Javier Ambrosi and Javier Calvo, which was probably the festival's biggest surprise for me and many others. Netflix quickly bought the rights to this one, and it's easy for me to see why. The Black Ball kind of has it all: an experimental narrative structure, good characters, sharp visuals and a killer soundtrack. It was one of this year's more maximalist films in competition, but it worked, and it worked beautifully. Some people may find the film overly sentimental, and maybe I did at times, but I was still moved by the experience nonetheless, and I look forward to rewatching it when it gets a wider release. The Black Ball was my second favourite that I saw at Cannes, with my favourite being Hope, which was by far this year's biggest outlier, and consequently this year's most divisive. I know many critics were surprised by Hope when comparing it to Na Hong-jin's previous films, but having now seen all of Na's films, I don't find Hope surprising at all. Yes, there are big CGI aliens, and Na has never operated on a scale this big before, but the ideas in Hope are merely an expansion of territory Na has previously explored.
아마도 제가 영화를 한다고 했을 때 시나리오를 이제 써야 된다 라고 생각을 했을 때 계속 머리를 쥐어짜고 어떻게 해야 될까를 생각했을 때 이 영화가 저에게 어떤 안내를 해줬고 가이드를 해줬던 것 같아요. 어마어마한 장면들이 너무나 많고 그 내러티브 또한 너무나 멋있는데 제가 실제로 영화할 때도 이제 시나리오를 쓸 때도 가장 많이 영향을 미친 저에게 준 영화라고 여겼어요. 그래서 많이 그 느낌을 많이 담으려고 노력도 많이 했었던 것 같아요.
Na has consistently cited True Romance, directed by Tony Scott and written by Tarantino, as his biggest influence.
It was fresh and different because the characters are unique. They're unique because they're dark and sweet and tender and violent and also have a sense of humour. And Quentin Tarantino is the thing that makes this movie and the script unique.
True Romance is a classic through and through. The cast is incredible. There's the Sicilian scene, Val Kilmer as Elvis, Brad Pitt as a stoner and James Gandolfini as a Tony Soprano prototype. I mean, the film really has too many great scenes to mention. It's such an entertaining watch, and I can see why Tarantino cherishes it so much, even though he didn't direct it.
Why is True Romance one of your favorites in your body of work?
Well, it's like a couple things. It's the first script I ever wrote. All right,
yeah.
And that's one. And two, it's a pretty accurate portrayal of me and where I was at 25. I mean, I wrote it when I was working at the Video Store Video Archives, and all those guys. I mean, none of that stuff ever happened. All right, but having said that, to us who worked in Video Archives, it's like a weird big budget home movie of our lives. That was our psyche. That was where we were at that time.
One of the most apparent influences Na takes from True Romance is how the film blends genres. Clarence and Alabama's fairy tale romance is frequently juxtaposed with the extreme violence of the gangsters they're entwined with. For example, early in the film Clarence confronts Drexel, and the mood is tense and dark. And then in the following scene, Clarence brings home a hamburger and shake and explains what happened.
I killed him.
The absurdity of the situation and the character's reaction to it are funny, and this style of dark humour clearly resonated with Na Hong-jin. I'm a big fan of dark and absurdist humour, and the way in which Na constructs his films leaves plenty of opportunities for some laughs. Humour is a great way to disarm an audience before introducing more dramatic elements, as it makes these moments all the more effective. There are comedic moments in all of Na's films, but I think he pushed the envelope even further with Hope. There were plenty of laughs in my screening at Cannes, which I think is a remarkable feat given how difficult humour is to pull off, and how humour doesn't always translate well overseas.
I think what's kind of interesting about the filmmaking of director Na as well is you just don't know what's going to come next. I think, used to sort of Western cinema, even though, films, are of very high quality and great films, you kind of have an idea what the trajectory is going to be, where it's going. Whereas with him, he's mixing genres. At the beginning, it's sort of like kind of comedy, it can be kind of absurd, and then it becomes very real. And it's just that sort of blending of different genres, that feeling of the unexpected, I think, can be quite rare in a cinematic experience, and I think he's a master at that.
Besides the blending of genres and humour, another key influence Na takes from True Romance relates to its narrative.
A good majority of movies that come out, all right, you pretty much know everything you're going to see in the movie by the first 10 or 20 minutes. Now, that's not a story. A story is something that constantly unfolds. I'm not talking about like this quick left turn or a quick right turn or a big surprise. I'm talking about it unfolds.
All of Na's films follow linear narrative structures. His debut feature, The Chaser, follows an ex-cop turned pimp who's in financial trouble due to several of his girls suddenly disappearing. He's initially unable to connect the dots as to why they are disappearing, and when he learns that the girls who disappeared all shared the same client, he wrongly believes they've been trafficked or sold. The protagonist in The Chaser is incompetent in certain ways, which is a shared trait amongst all of the protagonists of Na's films. The Yellow Sea follows a man placed in a desperate financial situation, partly because of his wife and partly because of his gambling addiction, who agrees to take on an assassination job in order to clear his debt. Here the protagonist is not up for the job, and things quickly go wrong, and the same can be said about the police officer in The Wailing, whose incompetence is consistently mocked, particularly during the early portion of the film. Na establishes his characters as incompetent in one way, but then he changes the stakes, which creates unpredictability and a particular type of suspense. In The Chaser, the protagonist may not be able to understand the motives of his girl's client, but can he save his girl before it's too late, and can he look after her daughter? In The Yellow Sea, the protagonist may have botched the original job, but can he find out who set him up? The police officer in The Wailing struggles to solve the mysterious illness that is plaguing his village, but as his daughter becomes infected, can he as a father protect her? All of these films function slightly differently, but at their core, the story unfolds slowly.
제가 치가 많은 그 사회 분위기 이런 것들을 영화를 해보고 싶다. 그게 발단이고요. 그게 시작이에요. 전작들에 대한 그 긴장감과 지금의 긴장감은 다르다. 계속 느리게 전진해 나가면서 스릴을 강화를 시키는 그런 스타일의 영화를 만들고 싶었어요.
Beyond the page, one of Na's strongest points as a director is his visual storytelling. Na emphasises the cinematic in his films by incorporating things like POV shots, action sequences and scenes which are minimal in dialogue and driven primarily through their visuals. You can really get a sense of Na's approach to storytelling in his short films, particularly The Perfect Fish Plate and Sweat. The Perfect Fish Plate features no dialogue and is driven entirely by visuals, music and sound as a chef tries to make the perfect fish dish. It's an entertaining little short that makes the process of cooking feel as cinematic as possible, and features splashes of Na's humour and absurdity. His short Sweat again features no dialogue and is connected purely through the thread of sweat in a variety of contexts. Faith, which was shot on a Galaxy S23, does feature dialogue, but is primarily an action sequence.
제목 그대로 신념에 관한 영화고요. 스스로의 가치에 대한 그 무게감이 절대적인 것이 아니라는 복합적인 얘기들을 한번 해보고 싶었습니다.
Faith is a fitting title for a short directed by Na Hong-jin given how prominent the theme is in his work. In a 2016 interview with the playlist, Na mentioned that while he is a Christian, he is not as devout as the rest of his family, and he finds himself questioning the existence of God sometimes.
아시겠지만 동양과 서양의 종교적인 개념 뭐 완전히 다르잖아요. 그러다 보니까 이제 이 동양적인 개념, 그 종교적인 개념까지 이제 아울러서 정리를 하려고 하다 보니 시인이 어떠한 나는 시인을 그럼 어떻게 표현할 거냐 영화 안에서 명확하게 시인을 표현할 수는 없겠지만 시를 느끼게 하는 뭐 그런 동양적인 샷이 뭐가 될까? 그건 어떤 자연을 찍는 것이라고 생각을 했는데.
The worldview Na Hong-jin shows in his films is very cynical. It's difficult to have faith in God and humanity when you look at what's going on in our world right now. Na's films show people being kidnapped, betrayed, murdered, and illnesses running rampant, indiscriminately destroying lives with no rhyme or reason. The police in all of Na's films are limited by bureaucracy, and the officers are ultimately incapable of protecting those around them. There is a fatalism that governs Na's films that is deeply unsettling, and unlike true romance, there is no fairy tale ending. Any hope the characters have in Na's films is eventually crushed, often to a devastating degree, and it's all very bleak.
김희진을 살릴 수도 있지 않았느냐 뭐 이런 말씀 많이 들었고요. 해서 살해된 한 여자를 둘러싼 사람들의 이야기 그리고 시간.
However, if the title is anything to go off, perhaps in Na's latest film there is hope to be found at last. The film is supposedly South Korea's most expensive ever, but the CGI used wasn't entirely embraced by those that can. For me, the film was so engrossingly cinematic that when the aliens were eventually revealed, the CGI never took me out of the experience, and I'm sure the version that is shown widely will be more polished. With Hope, Na pushes his love of action to new heights and delivers a blast from start to finish, a kind of Korean Mad Max Fury Road meets Transformers with spectacular wide-angle natural light cinematography and a pulse-pounding score. The film grabbed me from the get-go and never let up, and I think Hope is going to be a big hit. The film has already pre-sold to more than 200 territories worldwide, which is a record for a Korean film, and it has already recouped nearly half of its net production budget. I cannot wait for you to see it, and I can't wait for the sequel when it eventually arrives.